We all think of compost as this nutrient powerhouse, this great storage of free, slow release fertilizer that we can tap into periodically throughout the season. In truth, though, our compost piles are much more than that. And to uncover all those layers of benefits, we need to dive into what makes a compost tick. What separates a good compost from a poor or underperforming one? Because once we understand the processes that make a healthy compost pile, we can apply that knowledge to the base soils in our garden. There's no doubt in my mind that good soil is the lifeblood of a successful vegetable garden. And to me, composts are simply sped up, super speedy versions of our topsoil profile. So let's use my compost here today as a crash course study into the world of soil biology. As luck would have it, I got a couple of second-year raised beds with that annual dreaded soil drop. So let's get them filled up and ready for the season. And while we're at it, let's talk about what makes a compost a good compost. Like we said, most of us treat our compost piles like a nutrient bank. A place to store slow-release nutrients in the form of kitchen scraps and yard waste, then let them morph into a usable product to apply to our gardens. It's a system that works and has many benefits. For sure, the addition of compost to your garden is going to add in some slow-release nutrients like we talked about, but it's also going to improve drainage, water retention, aeration, and most importantly, the microbiology of your soil. You see, a finely tuned compost is disproportionately higher in beneficial microbes and bacteria. It kind of has to be able to break down those raw materials so fast. All right, so what are the components that make a great compost? Well, you see, compost is only made up of 5 ingredients: air, water, organic matter, minerals and nutrients, and microorganisms. The balance of these parts interacting with each other is what allows your compost to function at a high level. Same with our soils. Plants grow and flourish with the right ratios of air, water, and nutrients. And those 3 ingredients are facilitated by the levels of organic matter and microorganisms. So you can start to see the connection now. Start to see why we need to look at our compost as an extension of our garden soils. Okay, great. But what makes a good compost? How are we going to convert these grass clippings and bucket loads of kitchen scraps to yummy, viable compost? Well, there's 5 factors that are going to determine our success. And the first one is air. Your compost is working at its highest efficiency when it's in an aerobic state, meaning the profile is aerated and the microbes have access to oxygen. There's a lot of life within the compost itself that facilitates this aeration, but we can also do our part by keeping the next factor in check. And that's moisture. Microbes and bacteria in our compost need moisture to survive. They need it to continue to break down those raw materials into a usable form. Like anything though, there's always a risk of too much of a good thing. A compost that is too soggy or drains poorly is going to quickly grow anaerobic, and that's when we get into trouble. The whole process sort of just stops, and your compost is going to begin to smell. Keep the compost moist, but not soaking wet, and you'll be okay. Woohoo! That's hot. The third factor to consider is temperature. Not really something that we can control, but the speed of your compost and its internal temperature are directly related. Don't be surprised if your compost slows down in the winter and your raw materials begin to build up. The compost itself can generate its own heat, however, with the internal temperatures being much higher than the surrounding air. With your air, water, and temperatures all figured out, we get to the big one, the one factor that's completely under our control, and that's the CN, or carbon to nitrogen ratio. Basically, a desired ratio of brown or carbon sources. Things such as dry leaves, branches, cardboard, newspaper, and other dried organic matter. Measured against a lesser amount of green or nitrogen sources. Things like food scraps, coffee grounds, grass clippings, and fresh garden waste, including spent crops. The ideal is around 30-to-1 carbon to nitrogen. Too much nitrogen and our piles are going to burn out, causing ammonia gas and undesirable odors. Too little nitrogen in our ratio, and the compost is going to slow right down, with optimal processing becoming impossible. Shoot for a 30-to-1 CN ratio by weight, but whenever you're in doubt, err on the side of too much carbon. Lastly, one component that is so important in our gardens that we often forget about in our composts is a cover. Just like the soils in our garden, exposed top layers of compost are rarely functioning at a high level. The baking sun and beating rain do a number on our garden soils, and our composts are no different. A layer of grass clippings makes an excellent compost cover. A sort of mulch to keep the desiccation and erosion at bay. I like to leave my compost bins open to rainfall and air, so I avoid hard covers and plastics directly. Just like we diligently cover our gardens and garden beds, our compost can benefit from a little protection. I definitely got my work cut out for me today, as I likely need at least 8 to 10 wheelbarrows of compost to refill these garden beds. Compost is no doubt a precious commodity in any garden, and once you get a taste of the good stuff, there never seems to be enough. A good compost is a successful transformation of a heterogeneous, bulky organic matter into a fine, homogeneous wonder product. These 5 factors is going to ensure you get the most out of your compost, benefiting your garden and your plants. Happy growing, guys. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support more than you know. And if you're getting value from these videos, please like and share them to spread the word and help your fellow gardener to grow better.